Hi, everybody. Hi, y'all. We are live, live, live. This is me, and this is me. Do you hear me? Oh, you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. All right, now we go live. Close that, and we are live. Share screen. And yeah.
Weeks ago, President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally, right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
All in play.
This is an ABC
Here
News
comes
special. The most consequential moment of this campaign, Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Here's Lindsay Davis.
Good evening. I'm David. Viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules that have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or response. Pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for two candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Here they come. They're looking at each other nice.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you
And
both.
they
It's
shook each
wonderful to
other's
have you.
hands.
It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of young people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car. One of them is small businesses. I was actually actually, my mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is
but you didn't
knowing they
answer.
are part of the
There you go.
backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect. Countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they had. They would totally just in other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country, it breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and asylums. They're coming in, they're taking right now African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack
Now
on
she's
our
doing it. Now
democracy
she's speaking well.
since the Civil
Now
War.
she's giving it the business.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
Yeah.
What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the
Oh, you wanna
American
sit here
people. But I'm
now?
going to tell you all in this debate
All
tonight,
right.
you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who has more in common than what
Those
separates
are good.
us. And I pledge
That was
to
a
you to be
knockout
a president for
response.
all Americans.
And now,
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
here it
Number
is.
one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 20 purposely. I'm not
You don't
going to
wanna
read
read
it.
it.
This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what
All
I'm
right,
going to
this
do.
is
Cut
Fez
taxes
now
very
taking over
substantially
the
and create a great
debate.
economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died. Has there been anything like it? We did a country where the economy and where the stock market
Well,
was higher than it was
as Trump
before the
did,
regulators for the entire
did
world. We
did a
got
great
gowns,
job
we got masks, we
with
did
the
things that nobody thought possible. And people give me
COVID.
credit for rebuilding
Yeah.
the military. They give me credit for a lot of, but not
lot
enough
of
credit
things,
for the great job we
pandemic.
did with the pandemic. But jobs, we got bounce jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created
back.
them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Haley, respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the
Yeah, you
best
should just,
economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America.
just
What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald
just
Trump's
ignore
plan
that,
would make the
is there
economy worse.
because-
Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump
Okay, I'd be
actually has
speaking
no
more,
plan
but
for you
I
because
don't
he
want to interrupt the
is
next
more
president of the
interested in
United
defending
States.
himself than he is in looking out for you.
I'd be speaking more, but I don't want to interrupt the next president of the United States.
I went to the Wharton School
Okay.
of Finance, and
Look at this
many of
guy.
those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's
It's
a plan that's
brilliant
going to
It's a
bring
great
up
plan.
our
It's the
worth,
best
our
plan.
value as a country. It's going to make
It's the
people
best
want to
plan
be able
ever.
to go and work and create
Okay,
jobs and create a
work
lot
and
of
great jobs
good,
and
solid
nothing
money for
good,
our,
solid
for our
money
country. And
for
just
our
to finish
country,
off,
for our
she
country.
doesn't have a plan. She
She doesn't
copied
have a
Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just
Run,
oh,
spot,
we'll try and
run
lower
was 4
taxes.
sentences.
She doesn't have
I'm going to
a
drill down on
Doesn't have a
something you
plan.
both brought up.
He's a-
The vice president brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls as essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign
Yeah,
imports
tariffs
across the
on
board. You recently said
huge
that you might
tariffs.
double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country onto the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy
Worst period
cereal
of
or
time.
bacon or
Oh, you
eggs or
never heard
anything
of
else.
the
The
Trump?
people
Oh,
of
you
our
never heard of
country
his
are
administration?
absolutely
Of the Great
dying with what
Depression?
they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a
Destroyed
poll.
the
The
economy.
polls say
A poll.
80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was
5%,
great, that their
90%.
economy.
Vice President Harris, I just asked your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, American-based technology, so that we win the race
now I'm
on
listening to the
AI,
sentence,
on
so
quantum
can't-
computing. Focusing
Don't
on
want
what we
to,
need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up
But
having on the
this is
short end of
live
the
stream,
stick
so
in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about
I
this,
like to
with,
listen.
for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that she was responsible of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years under a MAGA hat, she's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country, that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21.
Well,
That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
Almost policy.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban.
It is weird.
Vice President Harris says that women should position so many
You
times.
can tell.
Therefore,
You can tell
why
how
should
much
they
he
trust
smiles.
So the reason I'm
He's
doing
a
that vote
joyous
is
man.
because the plan is, as you know, the vote is they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not it with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states, and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices.
Right.
We were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, and that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies. And that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one
He's a happy
state,
man.
it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied
Yeah.
care
Yes.
in an emergency, bleeding
Now I
out in
can
a
listen
car in
some
the
sense,
parking lot.
and then
She didn't
now
want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest
But-
being forced to carry a pregnancy to
the
term.
entire thing.
They don't want that. And I pledge
We'll
to
be
you,
back.
when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national
Okay.
abortion,
Yeah, to
a
come back.
monitor that would
Yeah.
be monitoring your pregnancies, your
Because,
miscarriages. I
this-
think the American
this-
people believe that
Okay.
certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make
Yeah,
decisions
we're
about
gonna
one's
have
own
our
body, should not be made by the
we'll
government.
be back.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she
And,
goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans,
yeah.
and everybody else, and every legal
Man, it gives
scholar
me a headache.
wanted
I
it to be
can't-
brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back. The
Doesn't
states are
wanna
now
hear
voting.
Mr. Grumpy.
What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50 in both Senate and the House. She can't get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
He
Well, I
wanted a
didn't
yes or
discuss
no.
it with,
I wish you
JD,
gave him
in
a
all
yes or no,
fairness,
too.
JD, and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even
Student
close to
loans.
getting student loans. They taunted young people, and a lot of people had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking of America and understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare, to get on a plane sitting next to strangers, to go and get the health care she needs, barely can afford to do it. And what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why
He looks like
in
a
every
doofus.
state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America.
Another lie.
The lie.
I'm a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
He's dumb.
you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question. Would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the state, came up with a border security bill, which I supported, in order to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually address the president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I would.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rally. There's no reason for them to be there. And then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the history of politics. That's people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in.
Oh, no.
They're eating the cats.
They're eating the dogs.
They're eating.
Springfield,
in
Springfield, they're eating the dogs.
Shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make America.
Eating dogs. Nobody's eating a dog. That's what he said in the debate. He just said it. Springfield, they're eating dogs. Well, come on, Don. Some of them dogs are tasty. So far, Don said the thing about the eating dogs, and she's getting to him. She's getting under his skin. That's right. Three-eyed kids in Springfield. Well, I don't know how you call this anything but a rout on behalf of Vice President Kamala Harris, because the Don was it's talking about dogs. Once you start talking about people eating dogs, first of all, you got to put that in context. Some dogs might be tasty. I mean, come on. I wouldn't. He wasn't talking about like eating Snoopy or something.
Once you start with that.
Here comes Snorty. And we're talking about eating the dogs. We're eating the dogs. We're eating a dog. Donald Trump would never eat a dog. All right, that doesn't work. All right. Right, we are. Hello. And how is everybody? The Ravens are playing next week. The Dolphins are playing on Thursday. The Ravens are the best. Yeah. Man. The eating dogs. And we're trying to get back here, friends. Trying to get back to this to me. We're getting the buffer. Oh, right. ABC Live. We're trying to get this. We've never done stuff like this before. We're doing it now. I can't. And we go here. Okay. Believe it or not, I don't want to watch that. Okay. Now we are losing it here. There's some people. All right. Here we are. Back to the show. We have Mr. Meany and we have Miss Nice Lady. And Grimace the Gargoyle is a looking weird. The fabric. Destroyed. They've destroyed. All right, here we are.
Happening at levels that
We are
nobody thought
having
possible.
migrant
President Trump,
crime.
as you know,
And
the
you're
FBI
giving me a
says
migraine
overall
headache.
violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris, I'll
FBI
give you the-
they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities.
They didn't include the worst cities
the cities with the worst crime.
with the
It
worst
was
crime.
a fraud.
It was a
Just
fraud.
like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let
Everything
you
a
respond,
fraud.
Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich
This is rich. So am I. And so is he.
coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward,
Right now,
that we turn
Donald
the page
looks like
on this same old
judge
tired
in
rhetoric
the chambers on a Law and Order
the
episode.
needs of the American people,
I'm a little
address what we
skeptical
need to
about
do
Mr.
about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do
what
to
was his
support our
name?
small businesses,
I'm
address
for certain
bringing
aware
down
of
the
how
price
the,
of groceries. But frankly, the
First
American
Amendment
people
works,
are
Mr. whatever
exhausted
the guy.
with
I
this
forgot his
same old
name.
tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Every one of those
Every one of those cases
was started,
was
by,
started
them
by them
against their
against
political
their political
opponents.
opponents.
And I'm winning
And
most
I'm
of
winning
them,
most
and I
of
will
them.
win the
I
rest
will
on
win the
appeal.
rest of them.
And you saw that
You
with
saw
the
that with the
decision that came
decision
down just recently from the Supreme Court.
Court.
I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases.
Everyone.
And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're
Trump.
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme. And the United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
We got to
This is the
continue
one
here.
that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head. Democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake
Trump.
Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least 8, but in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had production
Yeah,
in
you
history
tell him.
because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first
Missed
term.
us.
My
Missed.
work that is related to having a friend on
Thank you.
protecting women and children from violent crime is
You
based
tell
on a
'em.
value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing
tell
up for
'em,
those who are most
Kamala.
vulnerable. My work
Let the
that is
old
about protecting
grimace
Social
grin.
Security and Medicare
Look
is
at
based
him
on
pouting there.
long-standing work that I
Angry.
have
What's he
done,
thinking?
protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that
Yes.
is about lifting people
Yes.
up
Exactly.
and not beating people down. And name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually
What about the eating
understands
dogs?
the
Tell me about
strength
the
is
eating
not in
dogs.
beating
I want
people
to hear more
down,
about
it's
the
in
eating
lifting
dogs.
people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Fund the police. She's been, everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody
Well,
would ever think of. Now she wants to do
He's getting on.
transgender
do
operations on illegal
transgender
aliens that are in
operations.
prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get to.
environment, as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that
You
question.
were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to the mayor, put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos.
Yeah.
And to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every news of the stuff up. Ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C., and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look,
You lost
there's
by a
so much
whisker.
proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
They said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing.
Standing is
That's how
standing
we
the whole
lost.
night.
If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a
Go ahead.
special on it.
Do a
I'll
special
show
on it.
you Georgia, and I'll show
Georgia.
you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and
We have so
statistics.
many facts.
But now that's old news. And the
That's
problem
old
that we
news.
have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a
Into decline.
nation.
You heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and
It
yourself.
was won by President
But I
Biden.
do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last
He said he
couple of
never
days. This was
said
a
he
post
didn't
from
lose.
President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, "We won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote." Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
What is it?
Donald Trump was
Yeah,
fired
all
by
the
81
dogs.
million people. So
Shit,
let's be clear about
RFK
that.
Jr.
And
was
clearly
there.
he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States
Yeah, him and
who
RFK Jr. They had some
attempts,
goat,
as he
a
did in the
bear, a
past,
shark's head,
to upend the
and
will
dogs.
of the voters in a
in
free
Springfield.
and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world
He
as
has
vice
a
president of the United
suitcase.
States.
He has a shell. He has
And
like a,
world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of
he
whom
has
work
a
with
the
you.
balls.
And they
He has
say
a
you're a
scrotum on his
disgrace.
chin now. It has moved
And
from
when
his
you
neck to his
then
chin.
talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny
What is it?
what over and over again are court cases you have lost
No, he,
because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament
the temperament.
or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply
Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world
Why is the whole
blowing
world?
up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid
China
of
was
him.
afraid.
North Korea
North
was afraid of him. Look
of
at
him.
what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid
Russia
of
was
him.
afraid.
I ended the Nord Stream
He
2
ended the
pipeline,
Nord Stream
and
pipeline.
Biden put it back on
And
day one, but he ended the XL pipeline.
Biden put
The
it back.
Russians built a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest
Let the
pipeline
Russians build a
in the world.
pipeline
Look, Viktor Orban
in the world.
said it. He said the most respected,
Viktor
most
Orban said
feared
it.
person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president.
He had no
But when
problems.
this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But
Mr.
he
President.
got 14 million votes.
He
They threw him out. She got zero
secret.
votes. And
Biden
when she
hates her.
ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it
Mr.
because
President, your time
I
is up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime
Talking
Minister
about
Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making.
Who?
President
Stalemate.
well, let's understand how we got here. On October
How we
7th,
got here?
Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. I said then, I say now,
I say
Israel
then, I say now.
has a right to defend itself.
Has a right
We
to-
would. And how it does so
How it does so matters.
Because it is also true, far too many
Far too many
innocent Palestinians have
innocent
been killed.
Palestinians have been killed.
Children, mothers.
Children.
What we
mothers.
know is
What we
that
know.
this war must end. It must end immediately. And the way it will end
And
is we
Trump
need a
is
ceasefire
trying to
deal and
talk
we need the
about Viktor
hostages
Orban.
out. And so we will continue to
Viktor
work around the
Orban.
clock on that.
What are you
Work
talking about, Matt?
a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always is give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the
She hates
same time,
Israel.
in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're
They
a
were
rich
broke.
nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and
To eating the
distract
dogs.
from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known
Which is well known.
whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine.
Whatever the
It
hell
is
he
well
wants.
known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is
was
well known
brilliant.
he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
Consistent But look, do you think they see me?
You're too. I'd do anything for you.
People believe Arthur Fleck to be some kind of martyr. Well, he's not.
You don't think this is me?
Rated R. Why has America accepted the wait? Why has America accepted the wait for payday? When life doesn't.
Thing, yeah. Oh, we're having a wonderful debate. It's very
A
good.
revolutionary new way of
Magnificent
getting your
debate
pay.
about
When
eating
you
dogs
get
and
up to $500 of your pay before payday.
old
No
Trump
interest, no credit check,
bonds.
no mandatory fees.
I'm not the one that said that. You
When
said
any
that.
It's a
Not
good
me.
day.
I didn't say
Get
it.
paid when
You said that.
Families here.
She's the one who
At
said it.
refugee centers.
Not me. She's the one who eats the dog. She's the one who eats
ABC
the
News
people.
Live. This is ABC News Live.
She's the one that
here.
is mean to the
Poland.
people.
At refugee centers.
Putin's Russia.
On the ground in
Also-
Ukraine,
Close to the front line.
from the capital,
Why-
destructive Cat 4 store.
Here at Columbia
He making fun of
University, here in
Biden
downtown
too
Port-au-Prince.
much.
Let's go.
ABC News Live.
He ain't running against
America's
Biden.
number one streaming news straight to you for free.
Keep it real, people.
And keep it
I'm the
juicy.
shit.
Number
Okay.
one streaming news.
Okay, is that political enough for you?
ABC News, honored for
Yeah,
excellence with 40 Emmy
also
nominations,
mean,
mornings,
and also-
evenings, late night. ABC News, honored for excellence with 40 Emmy nominations, mornings,
And also he
evenings,
wants to have
late night, weekends.
20
Streaming
25
24/7
years.
with 40 Emmy nominations.
Don't
Thank
lie
you
about
for
that.
making ABC News America's number one news.
Hey! Good morning, America.
I would yeah.
Good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Are you ready? Covering the biggest events in the country right now.
Oh my gosh, I guess
You don't just see it, you feel it.
all the dictators together. Just like Hitler wanted.
Michael, George, Blair.
That's the way it is. If you want to unsubscribe to us, then
Why has
that,
America
yeah,
accepted the
come
wait?
on.
Why has America accepted the wait for payday?
This is
When
really
life doesn't wait for you to get paid.
that anyone would have any reason to vote for old loudmouth. Go ahead and unsubscribe.
When any day is
Oh, you
payday,
want to do the rest?
it's a good day. Get paid when you
Ez
say
is going to
with
come
my
back
pay.
to the rap. 10:07.
You're Joker. I'd do anything for you.
We're going to finish.
People believe Arthur Fleck to be some kind of martyr. Well, he's not.
You don't think?
Rated R. Rated R.
This is ABC News Live. News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers.
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine,
Close to the front line.
from the capital, destructive Cat 4 store.
Here at Columbia University, here in downtown Port-au-Prince.
Let's go.
ABC News Live.
Oh, get a little
America's
break from
number one streaming news. Anytime,
Idiot Trump.
anywhere.
Oh, we get up.
24/7 straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live.
He doesn't think
America's
about
number
whether or
one
not
What does
you
it take
support Trump
to be
politics.
the most watched newscast in
Face the fact
America?
that you support Donald Trump. Donald Trump follows these things.
We're approaching the gate. Militants.
He has no policy. He has no plan. He doesn't talk about. He was asked a
ABC's
question
World
about
News
child
Tonight with
care.
David Muir is
And he
America's
says
most
child
watched
care is
newscast.
child
You're watching America's number one streaming news. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
He has no empathy. He cannot be a leader. He cannot
Live
be
from
the
the
president
National
of the United
Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
States.
Here
One thing
again,
about Joe Biden,
David Muir
another
and
thing about
Lindsay
Kamala
Davis.
Harris.
Welcome back to this historic
Both
ABC News presidential
of
debate
them
tonight. We're going to
care
continue here, and I want
about
to turn to
other
the war in
people.
Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend
This
Ukraine from
president,
Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to
he
defend their
get that
sovereignty, their
He
democracy,
should honor
that it's in
the
America's best
Mr.
into other countries.
Okay.
You have said you would solve this war
I
in
don't know
24
who's
hours. You
watching.
said so just before the break
If
tonight.
you're not
How
watching
exactly
well,
would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I mean, this is
I want the
something you
war
just
to
started,
stop.
so
I want to save
I don't know.
lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the
Okay.
millions. It's the millions.
I don't know if
It's
this
so
is
much
gonna
worse
take off,
than the
but
numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers.
how it
Look,
is, and everything
we're
is
in for
fake if it's
250
just
billion
fake
or more
numbers.
because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to air up like I did with NATO.
Oh no!
I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So, but
Weak people.
you take a look at what's happening. We're in
Yeah.
for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize.
Okay,
With
I
that being
don't have a
said,
choice
I want to get the
to,
war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know
I don't have a
Putin very
choice
well. I
but
have a
to,
good
mute it
relationship, and they
because,
respect
I'll
your
I'll do
president.
Donald Trump
Okay,
for
they
everyone.
respect me. They don't respect
Big,
Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason?
big,
He hasn't even made a phone call.
Marxists, communists, eat dogs. Child care is child care. Blah blah me. Blah me. Blah blah me. Okay, that's as simple as you can put it.
That war would have never
Hey,
happened.
the reason,
And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But
inflation.
after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left.
He did a great
I
job.
said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation.
And,
Well, it wasn't because Biden had no idea how to talk to him.
we
He
could
had no
use
idea how
light.
to stop it. And now
And
you have
then
millions
use
of
the
people
dewormer
dead.
for,
And it's only getting worse. And it could lead to
the
World
wormer
War
works
III. Don't
well
kid
with
yourself,
the
David.
wormer.
We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's.
Uses
Where is
for,
our president? We don't even know if he's
especially
a
for the
president.
And just to clarify
They
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog.
But,
We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up.
That would
Interests for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the
For
U.S.
the
best
American
interest to get this war finished and
said,
just get it
he-
done.
he-
All right.
He
Negotiate it
tried. He talks about
deal
this
because we have to
no
stop
kid
all of
thing,
these human
which
lives
is an amendment
from
to-
being destroyed.
that would have given the tips
For
that
Ukraine
people
in
got
this
to
moment,
give them the
but also
bosses.
as commander in chief, if
Give
elected,
this
how
man
would you
the
deal with
respect
Vladimir
of all of
Putin?
them.
And
Just
would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
disgusting.
Well, first of
on
all,
liberal
it's
media.
important to
Liberal-
remind the former
this
president
isn't
you're
a
not running
liberal
against Joe
media.
Biden, you're running against me.
It was a liberal media. There
I
wouldn't
believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up.
come like Trump
And that's
running.
not who we are as Americans. Let's
Yes,
understand what
well,
happened
piece
here.
of Shit.
I
I'm just going to tell it like it is.
actually met with
If you
Zelensky
vote for that
a few
man,
days
you are a
before
racist.
Russia
You're a
invaded,
hate monger.
tried through force to change
And
territorial
there's
boundaries,
something
to defy
wrong.
one of the most important international rules and
You
norms,
hate the
which is the
Constitution of this
importance of
country.
sovereignty and
You want this
territorial
country to
integrity.
be destroyed.
And I met with
Not gonna
President
listen to
Zelensky.
us
I
never.
shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania.
Okay, we have a little problem with the feed, but well, that one
Because
person
of our
watching us,
support,
I
because of
appreciate
the
it, but
air defense, the
I guess we didn't do
ammunition,
any
the artillery,
advertisement for this
the
or anything,
javelins,
but
the
this is
Abrams.
just a soapbox thing, I guess. But it's good. It's good therapy. It's good getting used to. Yeah, I don't want to be.
Why the European
slave to
allies and
note
our NATO
things and
allies
just,
are
I
so
think
thankful
last thing I
that
tried
you
to
are
do,
no
this is
longer
giving me some
president, and
good
that we
experience. So
understand the
this
importance
is a
of the
contest
greatest
for my.
military
This is
alliance the
just
world has
a
ever known, which is
thing
NATO,
for myself
and
to
what we have done
build up.
to preserve the
We're gonna
ability
try
of
to build up
Zelensky and the
a brand.
Ukrainians to fight for their independence.
As you go to
Otherwise,
sleep,
Putin would be sitting
the
in
drugs
Kyiv
wearing
with
off?
his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you
Those
tell
are
the
those
800,000
are
Polish
Adderall.
Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men
Whoa.
and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please.
Okay,
He
let me
would have
listen.
been sitting.
Let me listen. Putin is afraid. They're all afraid of me. They respect me. Putin's a very smart man. He wouldn't do anything like that. That would jeopardize his country. You know, he's a very smart man. Blah 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 blah. Big things.
But
and,
eventually,
I
he's
did
got a
great
thing that
things.
other people don't have. He's
and
got nuclear weapons. They don't ever
I'm
talk about that. He's
strong
got
and
nuclear
weak.
weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that.
And
And
Springfield.
eventually, maybe he'll
Eating
use them,
all
and
the
maybe
dogs.
he hasn't been that threatening. But
That-
he
that
does have that.
Big
Something we don't even
raspy
like to talk
cookout.
about.
Yes,
Nobody
so,
likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate
It's
peace
hard to
before
do
this war
anything like
started.
this without
3
being
days later, he went in and he
you-
started the war
you aren't
because
angry
everything they said was weak
at the
and
state of
stupid.
what-
They said the
what
wrong
this
thing.
country can be. And you telling me that this
Her
parties
to
are saying
negotiate
election,
with Zelensky and
these
Putin.
elections don't matter.
And she did. And the war
Well,
started 3 days later.
Vice
And
President,
that's the kind of talent
I don't have any
we have with her.
respect for you. I
She's
don't
worse
have
than
any
Biden.
words for
In my
you.
opinion, I think he's the worst president in the
This
history of our
is
country. She
for,
goes down as the worst vice president
think
in the
about
history of our country.
You
But let me
don't
tell you
think about it
something.
for
She is a
yourself.
horrible
Think about it for
negotiator.
other people.
They sent her in to
Okay.
negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the
I mean,
invasion.
President
here,
Trump, thank you. You did bring
you
up something.
attack,
You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir
uh,
Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met
accuse
Vladimir
the other
Putin? Can you
side
clarify tonight?
of
Yet again,
being
I said it at the beginning of this
accepting
debate, you're
of
going to hear a bunch of
all
lies coming from
people,
this fella.
and
And that is another
we,
one.
we have behind.
When I went America
whether or
always
not
should,
a true
as a
true
leader upholding international
true
rules and
testament
norms,
of
as a
founding
leader who
fathers
shows
were
strength, understanding that the
the
alliances we have around the
technology would
world
change
are
things.
dependent on our ability to look out for our friends
They
and
could
not
envision their mind
favor
that
our
slave-
end about
that
democracy.
technology would end.
And that is very much what is at
There wouldn't
stake
be a
here.
need
The
for it.
President of the United States is commander in
They
chief.
didn't think this
And the American
society would be stagnant and nothing would ever change. No, amendments to the Constitution. If it was a strict reading of the
Battery.
We
Constitution
talked about
of
Ukraine
its words,
and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about
It al-
Afghanistan.
would
It came
also
up
seem
in the
strange
first
that
hour of this
the,
debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing
I
I've ever
can't
seen.
call them. I'll
He
call
got these
the MAGA
countries,
party.
the 28 countries at the time,
talks about
to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said,
the,
I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all
in
of
the
NATO.
post
We were being
office
ripped
and the
off by
Yeah.
European nations, both on
census
trade and on
control.
NATO. I got them
And,
to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before. If you
Yeah.
don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise, we
Trump.
would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the
Except
most
if you're a
incredible
Democrat,
jobs that he's
then
ever seen done.
no,
Thank you. I
because
want to turn to Afghanistan.
then
It came up in
you're
the first hour
telling
of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment
just in your
today. And I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
we have here
Well, I will tell you, I
convicted
agreed with
felon.
President Biden's decision
uh,
to pull out of
of
Afghanistan.
the
Four
court
presidents
system,
said they
system
would,
that
and Joe Biden did.
has been
And as a
benefited
result,
from.
America's
every
taxpayers are
way.
not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that
Yeah,
endless war.
mug.
And as
Look
of
at
today,
the,
there is not one member of the United States military who is in
hope is
active duty.
they
in a-
gonna run what is up with that?
Got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president,
Oh,
negotiated one of the weakest
what is,
deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal
I'm
maker.
looking old.
Even his national Security Advisor
Look at that.
said it
That's
was
a
a weak,
smile.
terrible deal. And here's how it went down.
A
He
smug son
bypassed
of a
government.
bitch.
He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization
Okay.
called the Taliban. The negotiation
Hell, I
involved the
don't know
Taliban getting
these men
5,000
sometimes.
terrorists,
Now we
Taliban
have two
terrorists
people watching. That's
released.
very
And
good.
get this, no, get this.
I must have really
And the president at the time invited the
that's where
Taliban to
they lose
Camp
people.
David,
I don't know.
a place
But
of storied significance for us as Americans, a place.
okay, we're having a little problem with the feed, but okay, here we go. Now let's
And
listen to a smart
this
person.
former president, as
You go,
president,
Kamala.
invited
And yes,
them
it is Kamala. It isn't hard. Go Kamala.
the role
Okay,
and
you stupid,
responsibility
freaking
of the
racist
president of the United
idiot.
States to be commander in chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the
You
point
lose
of
any
how he has
argument if you can't
consistently
even get the
disparaged
name
and
right
demeaned
because you do
members
it
of our military,
purposely
fallen
because you can't be
soldiers,
that
and
stupid.
the work that we
Not
must do to
hard name
uphold the
to
strength
pronounce.
and the
Okay,
respect of the United States of America.
but I guess you never used the comma, so you wouldn't know Kamala. So, okay, I would listen to a very smart person, but I have to fill in for her because there's a little problem with the feed we're getting. So,
That's the fighting
okay,
force within Afghanistan.
okay,
They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got
okay.
involved. And
Doing
Abdul
that to
is the
deal with
head
their
of
own
the
people.
Taliban. He is
Yeah,
still
your
the
own
head of the
people.
Taliban.
What,
And I told
what
Abdul, don't do it anymore. You
you
do it
talking
anymore, you're going to have problems.
Hey, give the respect to give this man to
That
say
out,
Mr.
Abdul.
President.
And for 18
He's
months,
not the
we had
president.
nobody killed. We did have an
Doesn't
agreement
deserve to
negotiated
be
by Mike
called
Pompeo.
Mr.
It was a very
President.
good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we
That's
wouldn't have lost the
because
soldiers.
you,
We wouldn't have left
you
many
earned.
Americans behind,
That's
and
not
we
a
wouldn't have
title
left.
you just
We
give
wouldn't have left
because you're
$85
in
billion
that
worth
office.
of brand new, beautiful military
Because
equipment
you're the
behind.
worst
And just to finish,
president in the history
they
of the United
blew
States.
it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they
Abraham Lincoln is disgusting. I never call it the
and in my
can't call
opinion,
it
the
the
most
Democratic
embarrassing
Party and
moment in the
never
history
call it the Republican Party. That died a long time ago. Okay.
Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was
So
black
here we
until a
go.
number
Now
of
we
years
can
ago
okay,
when she
let's go
happened to
smart
turn
person.
black, and now she wants to be
Listen
known
to
as black.
a
I
human
want to
being,
ask a bigger picture question here
empathy,
tonight.
compassion.
Why do you believe it's
Okay.
appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care.
It doesn't care.
You
Yeah,
make a big
doesn't
deal
care
out of
about the
something. I
racial.
couldn't care less.
That is quite
Whatever she
funny.
wants to be is okay with
Sure,
me.
talk about
But
it.
those were your words. So I'm
I don't
asking,
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black
I don't care.
that she put out, and I'll say that. And
I don't
then
care.
I read that she was black,
Indian,
and that's
and then
okay.
she was
Either one
Indian
was
for
okay.
a while. She was Indian. How? Then she was then she
A
became black. When
tragedy
she
that
suddenly
we
became
have
black.
someone who wants to be president who has
Oh,
consistently, over the course of his career,
she hates
attempted
Jewish
to use
people.
race to divide the American
She's
people.
so anti-Semitic.
You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that
She
we have so
married
much more
a
in common than what
Jewish
separates us,
man.
and we don't want
She's been married
this
to
kind of approach
great
that is just
marriage for
constantly
years.
trying to
Okay,
divide us,
so
and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald
get a
Trump
hold of
started.
that
He
logic.
was a land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he
I real
refused to
quick.
rent
Wait, I gotta listen to a smart person now.
property to black
Here,
families.
a real
Let's
person.
remember, this
Okay,
is the same
yeah.
individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park Five, took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United
Yeah, you go, Kamala.
Want someone who understands as I do. I travel our country.
Now
We
see
see
it's
in
getting
each
to the point
other
where
a
she's
friend. We
she's
see in
destroyed
each
this
other a
so
neighbor.
much.
We don't want a
She's destroyed this pile of shit. Would be giving a bad name to shit.
who tell me, can we
Look at
please
that
just have
miserable.
discourse about how
You
we're
want
going
that
to invest in the
miserable piece of
aspirations
shit
and the ambitions?
controlling everything about your life. Well, I guess I guess I'll be one of those people that are going to be, what?
Have the same dreams and
I'll have to
aspirations
be
and want
wound
a
up.
president who invest in those, not in
I'll
hate
be
and
lucky
division.
it put me what? Concentration camps.
President Trump, this is
We
now your
thought
third
we
time.
think
This is the most divisive
after we did
presidency in the history.
so. This is the United States of America. We cannot let our republic,
They pled guilty. And I
We-
said, well, if they
a
pled guilty, they
democratic
badly
republic
hurt a person,
of
killed a
people.
person ultimately. And if they pled guilty,
Okay.
then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world.
He built
And I'm
one
going to build
of the
it
greatest
again. It's going to
economies.
be bigger, better, and
He
stronger.
built it.
But they're
It
destroying
was
our economy.
already there.
They have no idea what a good economy is. Their
Yeah.
oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is
We
Biden.
gotta go
You know,
back.
she's
You don't even know. Yeah, well, that makes it okay that you put a thing. So you're saying it was a horrible thing, but oh yeah, that's in the past. Oh, that was yesterday. Yeah, what I do yesterday? Yeah, yesterday I talked about dogs. That was yesterday.
And I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small business.
I got smug. It would be a
To give startup
ridiculous.
businesses
Ridiculous,
$50,000
just
tax
startup.
deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their littling and name calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have-
policy.
Yeah. Could I be blessed to this, or because I know what
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump-
the
President
former
Trump-
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I
gonna
just need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was and what I said that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it.
he's
But
still working
remember
on
this,
things. I thought
I
those plans are
inherited
supposed to come
Obamacare
out.
because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare.
Much better
But
plan.
the Democrats
Much
came up.
no
they
plan.
wouldn't vote for
Yeah.
it. I had a choice
Plan.
to make when I was president.
Get sick.
Do I save it and make it
Don't
as
have
good
it.
as going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real. We just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing.
You
but
saved
it's
it.
still never going to be too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until
it's
then,
coming out.
I'd run
then.
it as good as it can be run.
So just
The
yes or no,
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not
I have
president right
concepts
now.
of a plan.
But if we come up with
Didn't
something,
I have
would
a
only change
thousand
it if we come up
plans?
with
Like
something that's
every
better
week
and less
we're going to
expensive.
come out with a
And
great
there are concepts and options we have
Now we
to
have
do
concepts.
that. And you'll be hearing
I
about
have
it in the not too
concepts, and
distant
you'll be
future.
hearing
Vice
about the
President
great
Harris, in
plans.
2017, you supported
True.
Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time. And I will never get a Senate. Great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no.
Yeah. Go, Kamala. Yeah, that's great.
Affordable Care Act, you have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny?
Yeah. Well, we're down to one person. I guess I got rid of one person.
If a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes,
you know,
and thankfully,
I decided I'll be like,
as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did.
It's time to take a stand.
And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this
I thought she should do
is that access to health
answering the
care
questions
should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it, pass this pro-law in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of
mistake.
Okay,
Number one,
here we
John
go.
McCain fought
Which was
Obamacare for 10 years.
Guess
But it
we're
wasn't
doing a
only
switch
him.
off.
It was
It's the
all
tag
of the
team.
Democrats that kept it going. And you know what?
If I made
We can do
anyone
much
angry,
better than Obamacare, much less money. But
thank
she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump-
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard
Hello?
and made money, and
Okay,
they want to have
Meanie-
private.
Meanie-
She wants
Meanie
everybody to be
McGrumpy
on
against
government insurance
very
where you
good
wait
lady. Okay.
6 months for an operation.
Yeah, what is he? He's waiting for a fish. Now, we had a podcast started in politics 2018. It
to
was
fight
called
climate change. And Vice
Killing
President Harris,
on
we'll start with you. 1 minute
Fifth
for you each.
Avenue.
Well, the
Or
former
shooting.
president had said that climate
And
change is a hoax.
The one,
And what we know is
18
that
was
it is very
positive.
real. You ask anyone
Then
who
in
lives
20
in a state
came,
who
and we
has
had a podcast
experienced
show,
these extreme weather.
Late Night Baltimore, and it was good. Then we had a show late night
of what that
LNB
means in
network
terms of losing their home,
uh,
having nowhere to go.
in 20
We know that we can actually
and
deal with this
22,
issue. The
and
young
it
people of
worked.
America care
And
deeply about
now
this issue. And I
we're
am
going to
proud that as
be
vice president over the last 4
politics,
years, we have invested $1
and we
trillion
are
in a clean energy
all
economy, while we
for
have also
Kamala
increased
Harris for
domestic gas
president,
production
and
to
all
historic
and
levels.
all the Democrats.
We have created
Because if you
over
don't think there's a
800,000
difference,
new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice
then you
president.
can
We have invested in
you can
clean
go eat some of
energy
them
to
dogs
the
in
point that we are
Springfield
open.
if you don't think there's a difference. And if you think back to all the excuses people give Donald Trump, when he came time when he had the first big crisis with the pandemic, we're still trying to recover from his horrible
Have the endorsement of the
inability.
United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also
Yeah. And Viktor Orban
automobiles. It includes growing
and
what we
Viktor
can do
Orban.
around American
That's your
manufacturing
great
and
guy.
opening up auto plants,
And
not
what's that on
closing
your
them
head?
like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs.
They lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs.
Building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money.
His makeup is starting to melt. He has a Batman mask on now. Donald Trump has a Batman mask on now. He ain't Batman. Now he's frozen. Look at that. She feels sorry for him. That's $1 million.
This is
And,
a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the
They're selling our
tubes.
country
President
down
Trump,
the
thank
tubes.
you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements
Closing
from both of our
statements.
candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential
Paid.
Well, we'll say one thing.
Introducing MyPay from Chime.
We
A
were
revolutionary
getting
new
some,
way
okay.
of getting your pay when you want. Get up to $500 of your pay before payday. No interest, no credit check, no mandatory fees. When any day is
Well, I
payday,
mean,
it's a good day.
It's pretty
Get
good.
paid when you say. With MyPay.
Technical.
Get started at chime.com.
Nobody knew I existed. But look at all these people. Who do you think they see me?
Oh wait, here's the debate again. Oh no, this is the
I'd do anything for you.
this is the
People believe Arthur Fleck
trailer for the Joker movie. Hard to tell.
to be some kind of
Well, when they come back, we'll watch their final arguments. But anyway, we're gonna have some shows on the team. Cleveland. What's his face is that Deshaun Watson is getting in trouble again with some another lawsuit. So, and he's awful. And also Miami Buffalo tomorrow, Thursday night. Faz, what do you think on that game? We'll have more about it when we do our NFL show this week. We'll do our NFL show this week, hopefully tomorrow, maybe, or Thursday. Thursday, perhaps. But the NFL's power ranking, they have the Ravens, I think, 5th. KC 1. And Miami, I think Miami was 8. That's not so bad for Miami. All right, we're gonna go live to the. There's something I don't know. You check it. They went up. They're all right. The Jets are going to be the best.
Tab, what's the right stuff to buy right now? I really love
No
that.
one
It's
is
time to
better
buy
than
right stuff.
the
Yes,
New York
and
Jets.
save
They're the
big
greatest
time,
team
too. The right
ever.
stuff. Fridays on GMA. You're gonna love it.
Why is America accepted
Death
the
to the
wait for
Jets.
payday? Why is
Okay, what did
America
the Orioles
accepted the
do
wait
tonight?
for payday?
Or
When life doesn't wait for you to get paid.
Nope.
Introducing My
They're
Pay from
having
Chime,
fun.
a revolutionary new way.
Well,
of
I
getting the
myself,
pay
and I'm not
you
just saying
want.
it. I
Get up to
think it was a blowout
$500 of your
for
pay before payday. No interest,
for,
no credit check,
Kamala.
no mandatory fees.
They talk
When
about
any
a
day is
dog
payday,
eating.
it's a good
You're
day.
talking about people
Get
eating
paid
food.
when you say with My Pay. Get started at chime.com.
He ate him for
Nobody
lunch.
knew I existed. But look at all these people.
Look at all these
Who
people.
do you think they see me?
All right, the Orioles
I'd do anything for you.
won tonight.
To be some kind of martyr.
The Orioles won tonight. The Orioles.
Well, he's not.
What's
You
the
don't
record?
think this is
thing?
me?
Safety is the only thing that matters. We designed smarter ways to detect motion for fast emergency response. We create HD cameras so you could see what's
Right.
happening in your home
The
from
American
anywhere.
League East,
All
the
powered
Orioles
by Fast Protect technology.
are a game and a half
Exclusively
behind the
from
Yankees, who are
SimpliSafe
80
for faster
one. The
police
Orioles
response.
are 82
Now install our
and 3.
advanced system your way. Have a
Not
pro
bad.
set it up or easily do it yourself.
I
There's
guess
no
they're not going to
safe
win 100 games.
like
Oh
SimpliSafe.
well.
This Tuesday, the view's on the move into a new big season on ABC. And get this, moving
Dodgers
into a
ain't.
fabulous
Nobody
new
wins.
home and studio too.
Y'all know we're moving, right?
New home,
Same hot topics.
see you soon for an all-new season of The View from our new home. New season, new hot topics, hot new studio, same time, right here on ABC. And
Hot
there
new
will be
studio.
surprises, right, Whoopi?
Oh, yeah. Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Philadelphia.
Here again, David Muir
Not too
and
far.
Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris,
Closing
we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our
Right now, Kamala is speaking and doing very quite well. The feed
believe
goes in and
that
out.
the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward.
We can chart a new way forward. Yes. Our feed.
Understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which
Guys,
is
where's the
why
game,
I intend to
Dolphins game?
create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting
I
seniors,
say
what we
Kamala.
can do that is about
Kamala,
giving
yes.
hardworking
One.
folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was the DA. One client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and
All
focus on what we can do over the
Focus
next
on what we
10
can
and
do in the next
20
10,
years
20
to
years.
build back
To
up our
build
country
back
by
our
investing
country.
right now in you, the
Yeah.
American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to.
Well, our feed is goes weird.
Half years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like.
They have no respect.
We have a good set
Didn't
though.
she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with
Someone's
Russia
laughing at
and
us.
Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other.
We're going to be in a third world war.
Entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these millions of people to come into our country, many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump.
Oh,
thank
don't
you.
put yourself
And that
down,
is our
Donald. You were the
ABC's
worst president in
presidential debate
history.
from here in Philadelphia at the National
All right.
Constitution
Well,
Center.
that ends
I'm
our
Lindsay
watch.
Davis.
And
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for
we
watching
hope-
here in
we
the
thank
U.S. and
you.
all over
And
the world,
you
and
know,
from all of us here at
this
ABC
is
News.
pretty darn great over well. But we are not wanting to hear people because I don't want to hear dumb people because they're going to say this and they're going to say that, and I'm tired of their shit. I know what I saw and I know what it was. So F that. Now we're gonna have. I gotta redo Charles Street. Everyone see that video on Charles Street? Well, it was bad because I didn't have a gimbal with me and I was driving up Charles Street trying to film. And even though it was a cool idea, I have to be holding the gimbal to make what is it? The mural was good, yeah. We're not slacking off on the stuff about this is a lot of content this month. We're gonna get a show all the time because now we got this. We're figuring it all out. And I also figured out that a lot of people use StreamYard on the internet. And this is a StreamYard without the all the features. So when we get all the features, yeah, I'm gonna get all the features next time. All right, everybody, please like and subscribe and like, because this is the greatest. This is the greatest sports show in the universe, and this is the greatest political show in the universe. This is the best comedy show in the universe. This is the best every kind of show in the universe. If you don't believe me, well, then you got to check the universe. You must check yourself before you wreck yourself. And now I'm off to Springfield to enjoy myself some dog. I will have Rover with a side of Spot and a little bit of Shih Tzu. Thank you. All right, everyone. And a needle Schwitzel. Yeah. All right, everyone. Good night. we will see you soon with our NFL show. Probably should have an NFL show tomorrow. Okay, we're straightening it all out. Goodbye, everybody. Have a lovely night.